Good morning. Welcome to today's Startup Story session. In conjunction with our launch last week, we launched Alpha Startup for Women Pre-Accelerator program. So it's basically an accelerator program where we would like to have all women-led startups and also women founders to join and learn how to start a startup, unleash your business potential, and also promote gender equality. So this accelerator, what's unique about it compared to the other accelerators that we run is that it's a first time that we are doing an all-female batch. So if you are interested, feel free to scan the QR code and also register before the 19th of February, which will be closing the cohort. So we hope to have all women-led startups in Malaysia and also Southeast Asia. So it's open to everyone. And it's going to be conducted virtually. So, no matter which part of Malaysia you are at, you can basically join this. So without further ado, if you have any questions, you would like to direct it to Rejina, feel free to drop it in the chat box. I would like to pass the floor to Rejina, who will be sharing her startup story and also her journey of starting a fintech startup. So she transitioned from a corporate career into starting a startup, and she'll be sharing a little bit more about what WWAT is and also her journey thus far. So Rejina, over to you.
Thanks, Shannon. Hi everyone, I'm going to be sharing my screen to sort of facilitate the storytelling. All right, give me a second here. Yep. Right. Hi. So this is me, Rejina. So I'm just going to be giving you a background of where I started and whatnot. And so that's hopefully, the lessons learned and what I'm still learning will be rather useful for you as well, hopefully. Anyway, I'm really excited to be here this morning. So thank you very much to 1337 and the team, Shannon, Ronnie, Nara, and everyone else. Thanks for having me. And I hope you guys are also happy to be here. So this is me. I'm Rejina Rahim. I'm a startup founder. I'm a DEI advocate, a coach, mentor, corporate governance advisor, board member, wife, mother, and daughter. But basically what I'm trying to say is that I'm a work in progress human being. So I'm not sure if any of you have seen Alice in Wonderland or read Alice in Wonderland. So there's a very famous scene there whereby, Alice basically asks the Cheshire Cat where should she be going, right? And basically she didn't know where she was wanting to go, and she doesn't care where she wanted to go. So, but it was really interesting because basically the cat said, you're going to get somewhere if you walk long enough. And I thought this was actually very, very important to share because I think that's basically what triggered me as well. A few years ago when I was also trying to figure out where do I go and how to sort of, do the next thing after corporate life, because I was wanting to actually leave corporate life. Because basically trigger number one was basically the fact that I had started, I was in Nomura for 15 years. I was in capital markets for 25 years. And I felt like I was in a career rut because I was the youngest MD in Nomura. And, after 15 years, it was just, where do I go next and stuff like that, right? So basically, I thought I needed to do something more because I had grown the business to about 30 billion ringgit in terms of assets under management. It was an award-winning fund management house. And I knew I was capable of more. So, but, as normal human beings, what happens is that you've got limiting beliefs, right? So I was quite concerned, was I smart enough to actually, to start my own business? And at that point, I was in my late 40s. I'm thinking, am I too old? I actually like money and a salary. So I had all these issues and thinking, oh my God, this is very scary. Do I really want to do this? So then trigger number 2 was actually quite personal, because it was, my sister was dying. And I at that point in time, I decided I wanted to go for NLP coaching, because I thought it would be able to help me figure out whether or not I wanted to do coaching a lot more, because I enjoyed mentoring for many, many years. And I thought coaching was the way to go. And that was basically what I was going to do after corporate life. And that NLP coaching was actually very, very important, because it basically showed me possibilities, that you always have choices, right? And, with my sister dying that year in October 2020, I realized then, there was an opportunity to help other people, because I realized that, having to go through all the administration of my sister passing on, I realized that there's a lot of things that was common to a lot of people, in the sense that, getting organized was difficult, and people can't be bothered to really get organized. And that's how the idea was basically born, to come out with W Vault. So the next steps, ideation, right? In terms of like, okay, figuring out what exactly, how do I work this out, right? So as part of the plan was, of course, I had to do my own to-do list, right? I had to obviously figure out when I was going to quit my job, telling my family and figuring out whether they were going to be supportive, prepping myself mentally. That was very, very hard, because, I've been, very privileged to be a very young C-suite from the age of 34. So I had people doing things for me. I had a driver, all sorts of things. So it was cushy. It was tough. I won't deny that. And so I had to figure out, okay, in terms of finances, is everything okay? And so I gave myself a year, to August 2021, to basically say, okay, I'm going to quit my job in 2021, and gave myself a year basically to do that. And I did, but Nomura didn't let me go immediately, so I actually stayed on as an advisor for quite some time, until April 2023. So one of the lessons I learned is that confidence is basically just simply a state of mind, right? No matter what people say and whatnot, no one's going to, you're not going to feel as confident as until you feel it, right? So that's something I know that no one else could talk me into it, and I'm glad that I've got quite a good, strong mindset, that I was able to say, like, I can do this. So one of the things I learned in the NLP course is that my subconscious does not know the difference between what is real and what is not. So I kept talking to myself. I kept, sort of rah-rahing myself, saying, okay, I can do this. It's workable. It's not something that is impossible. So that's how I took the step. So basically, the first step was basically finding co-founders, right? So I had at that time started talking to a few friends, and so as we were talking, and I was talking about W4 and how this was for legacy planning, I had talked to Sherry, my co-founder, and she said that, hey, actually this is a good idea. We can actually expand this into something much, much more than just for legacy planning, because I've gone through divorces, and basically it's getting organized was also very, very useful for as you're trying to build your life again after divorce. So that was also that gave me a lot more confidence as well. So that was how I found Sherry. When we first started, actually there were three of us, but we didn't last until very long. Three of us. It was just two of us by the time that we joined Alpha Startups. Back in 2023, basically 2022, late 2022. and 2023 is when we finished. So one thing for sure, I think one of the lessons that I learned is that you need to know your true north, and that you need to learn about, what is it that you really want, because at the end of the day, whether it's friendships or just the good relationships with your other co-founders, you really need to have that alignment of what you guys are wanting in the business, right? And I think that's something that I'm glad we learned earlier on, rather than later. So fleshing out the idea. So I think that was the difficult part, right? Because it's easy to figure out, okay, I want to do this, I want to do that, but how do you actually get something out and build? And because myself and Sherry were both capital markets and human rights experience, we were not tech people, so I think that was the biggest challenge, trying to figure out, trying to talk to the developers and figuring out, okay, how do I do this? How do I actually flesh out this idea? So that was really interesting. And I think this is why, it was important for you to talk to as many people as possible, because to basically give more color and more structure to your idea, right? I think another lesson was the fact that how your idea initially looks like and how it's going to look like at the end can be very, very different. So I think the mindset must be flexible enough for you to be ready to pivot. You cannot be thinking that, this is what I want and it's got to be the same. And I think that's what's great about the accelerator program, right? It's like you realize then that things can change very fluidly. So I think that's one of the best things ever. Lesson number 4 was definitely this, which is basically what got me to the top of the corporate ladder might not get me to where I want to be in business, right? So I think that's something. One thing for sure, the entrepreneurship journey is extremely humbling. It's not something I recommend if you like your high life and your titles and whatnot. So that was definitely one of the lessons. So it's good because you need to be, you need to stay sharp, you need to stay humble, to do what you want to really do, right? So one of the strengths also that I learned is that I had a very good personal branding. And, I leverage on that because I needed to also move away from my personal branding that was very much attached to my previous employer, which is Nomura. So everyone knew me as Rejina from Nomura. And so how do I move away from that personal branding, from the corporate branding to a personal branding, right? So that was also a strength, but at the same time also a challenge, so that was something. So that was, definitely I needed to walk the talk, and I needed to also realize that it was okay to share my different faces and leverage on the fact that I had 25 years in capital markets, and that's something that I was fine to share with, and be very proud of my past. So building the team, I think one of the key things is that, this is something that I've always done, even in my previous life. Whoever I interview and whatnot will have to have that alignment of vision and values of what I want in the business, right? Because I know that I don't operate alone. And I know that I need to always have a plan B and C and D. So it's very important who you have as especially your initial team members. So I think that's something that so far I think I do have my A team at the moment. So traction, I think that's something that it's not so easy, because then you realize this is totally out of your control. This is something that, whether it's your partnerships or your customers and all that, this is when you'll know whether or not you've built a good product. If it's good, it's definitely going to move ahead. If it's not, then you're going to have to rebuild, basically, right? So, but don't give up, because you know, Facebook was not, it didn't look how it was. Apple was not a business that was, you know, successful from day one. You know, we all start somewhere, right? So dealing with investors, what we know. So I was very lucky. So apart from, you know, joining the Alpha Startups program, I was also able to attract some angel investors. So what we now know is that I think it's very important for you to attract people like-minded with what you want to build. So that's very, very important. Be aware of the fact that there are some investors out there who or people who say that they will deal with other investors for you and take a big cut of any money raised. So do spend on legal advice. I think that's something that you know, you need to be very wary of, because you need to read the agreement very, very well, because you know, it could be something very new to you. So yeah, just be aware, because it's your business. So don't just give up equity for the sake of it. So how do you attract investors? From what I can see is sell them 30% of what you did before. So maybe I probably sell to potential investors a lot more than 30% of what I did before. And then the rest is basically sell them the future, right? And you know, I think that's pretty sage advice as to how you want to attract investors. So facing customers, I think, you know, it obviously depends on what target customers you have, whether it's corporates or directly. You need to know how your customer looks like, so that you can actually figure out what's the best way of actually dealing with them. To me, collaborations are the great things about accelerator programs as well, because you never realize that some of the people that's within your cohort will be also the ones who could be you know, helping you tweak your product to be a lot better than you would have been able to yourself. So anyway, this is pretty much my last slide. Be the change you want to see, and all the best for those who are joining the new cohort, and thank you for listening. So I know some of you have had some questions, so I'm going to stop sharing at the moment. You know, I think it'll be much nicer if you actually ask me directly.
So thank you, Rejina. We do have two questions from those who have RSVP, right? So maybe I'll read out the first question from Siti. So the first question is basically, do you have your ups and downs during the journey? I think you highlighted some of it, right? Perhaps if there's a particular moment you like to share.
Well, definitely, you know, I think apart from Alpha Startups, there was quite a few other programs that I got, you know, we applied for and stuff. And, you know, so there were lots of ups. You know, there were things like the fact that whenever you get shortlisted for a program, that's always very, very good, right? So there would be the ups. The downs, not so much, apart from when, you know, we had to lose one of our co-founders initially. So I think that was a down, but that was also good, because you know, trying to ensure that we had alignment of values, right? Yeah. There's a question in the chat. Do you have a mentor to guide along the way?
Yep.
So I was very lucky, YB, because at the, you know, so one of the best young entrepreneurs around, you know, was my ex-staff. And, you know, so when I decided to do this, I actually asked her, and I asked her, you know, if, you know, was I mad to do this and stuff like that. So there was basically roles were reversed, because I used to mentor her when she was working for me, and you know, now I still ask her for things whenever things get tough, or like how do I, you know, create better value and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess I do have a mentor, but I also have a coach at the moment as well, just so that I can see things that I'm not seeing myself, because it's very easy for you to be so focused on the business and what you're doing that at the end of the day you might be not seeing what are the things that are going wrong. So I think it's always good to have a different perspective, and of course having a co-founder is also very good, because then you can always realize that you're not always perfect, right?
Yeah, that's a very, very good advice. We have also a couple of questions here, so I'll read them out. I think Sivai asked about way of funding or venture capital recommended. So perhaps he's asking for like method of fundraising. Yeah.
It depends on which stage you are, and I think what's really interesting is VCs are not for everybody, I think. So I guess it depends also on the VC, right? So it depends on where you want to be, and VCs might not be the immediate choice. You might want to try grants and everything first as well. I do recommend the angel way, because I think they're a lot less scary for especially if you're very new in the journey. Yeah.
Agree. Yeah, definitely consider that. Okay, there's one more questions, right? How do you actually manage your business and family?
Okay, so I have to tell you, my children are adults now, so that was another reason why I decided to only quit my job and do this business, because 2020 was the year that my son went to university at the end of 2020, right? So it was only that year that I had the guts to actually do it. But yeah, so I'm quite lucky. I'm an empty nester, so I don't have to worry about dealing with the kids, but I do have to deal with my aging parents, which is also something that is not so easy to deal with as they grow older. Yeah.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, we get a lot of these questions whenever we run a women's panel, women's event. So that's nice. I think one more question would be actually just now you cover a little bit on a mentor, and also you have a coach, right? So just to backtrack a little bit, right? Do you have just a mentor, or do you have like multiple mentors that you could share? I know one of them you share is your ex-staff. And the question that the audience actually asks is, where do you find mentors?
Okay, I think with mentoring is you really need to just be brave and ask anybody that you like, right? So I have mentored people from either they're very, very young graduates to C-suites and stuff like that, right? So it really depends. So, I think one of the things that you need to look at is possibly use LinkedIn. You'll be very surprised at how some of people are just quite happy to help you, So just have that thick skin and just say, okay, I'm interested in what you do. Can you help me in my journey? Usually if you say like, can you help, or, can you do me a favor and, go with me with this journey, I think most people would not say no, because it's difficult when you say, can you help, right?
Yep, that's a very good opening line. Okay, I have one more question in the PM. Do you think it's harder to be a female entrepreneur compared to a male entrepreneur? I think it's
So a lot, like just like the question about how do you juggle with family and stuff like that. I think this question, I get this all the time. I think it's your mindset, right? So when in my previous company, I was actually the only non-Japanese female MD to manage one of their branches, right? Their Malaysian branch. I never saw it as a problem, right? So the thing is, I used that advantage that I was a foreigner, the fact that I was a woman. So, you know, I don't have to go drinking with my bosses all the time. I don't have to go, I didn't have to, you know, wait for the bathroom because it was all men. You know, so there are perks. So you can take it two ways, right? You can always say like, oh, as a woman, it might be more difficult. But right now, I think this is the time for women. So this is why, you know, you should take advantage of the fact that, you know, there's a lot more focus on women and women entrepreneurs. And in fact, International Women's Day theme this year is about investing in women. So leverage on that. So rather than seeing it as, is it tough? Or it's not, it's your mindset, right?
Yep, definitely agree on that. Yeah. And running a startup has its challenge itself, right? Despite the gender. So I think last question would be this also from the registration. How did you came out with the business idea and why? So I think you share a little bit on the intro, right? Yeah, maybe you want to dive deeper.
Yeah, so basically it was very simple. My sister had passed away and I was struggling with the administration papers, right? Trying to figure out, you know, I was lucky enough that my father was very organized to help her organize a lot of stuff. So, but it was still, you know, different drawers, different documents all over the place, right? So I thought, hey, imagine just with a click of a button, I could do everything all at once and just, you know, basically take there's documents that I needed and just you know, talk to the lawyers, right? You know, so I didn't have to waste a few weeks just figuring out before I went to see the lawyers. Yeah. So that was basically the initial idea, but we've obviously expanded since then. Yeah.
Yeah. So in short, you sort of started with a problem that you encounter and you turn that into a problem statement. And yeah, now you're helping a lot of women out there with this, right? Especially if they are going through a tough period.
Yeah. But what we found, even though we're targeting women, it's not just women, it's the men as well who realize the value of it because, you know, the whole issue of organization is not just for women, right?
Yep, definitely. Okay. All right, I think all the questions, we've sort of addressed them. If you have any other questions, feel free to drop into the comment box. I'll take a look at Facebook Live. Yep. I guess last thing, right, before we sort of close, you know, what's that one advice you would give, you know, for anyone who decides that, you know, they want to start a startup, they're still sort of thinking, you know, about this is a new year, 2024, right? What's that advice you would give for someone who wants to start a startup?
Yeah, I think the thing is that if I could turn back time, I would have told myself to have started this a lot earlier is, you know, not fear things, right? Because like I said, like I shared earlier, it's always so easy to think about the limiting beliefs and all that, that you're, you know, you're not good enough, you're too young, too old, to whatever, to do anything, right? So I think that's something that you know, so the question that I had when I started talking to my parents, to my children, as well as to my husband, when I decided to quit my job, was basically to say like, what's the worst that can happen, right? What's the worst thing that could happen? And I realized that actually, there was a lot of things that, you know, I could do a lot less with, right? Yes, but I still don't skimp on my facials, lah, but apart from that, it's like, you know, you don't need so much stuff, right? Yeah.
So the time is now, right? Or even yesterday.
It's always now, you know, so yeah, go ahead and do it, right?
Yep. So I hope this session has encouraged all of you. We have also dropped, if you like to connect with Rejina, she's on LinkedIn, right? Her profile link is also on the chat box and also on the comment box. So thank you, Rejina. And I guess, you know, for anyone who is interested to, you know, start a startup, but you're not sure how to do so, we have the perfect program for you, right? Join our Alpha Startup for Women Accelerator. The cohort is starting in end of February, right? Register before 19th of February, right? So this is a completely free program for anyone to join, and you would also get mentorship, right? So Rejina also mentioned that getting that mentoring, bouncing that ideas with someone, especially founders who have done successfully running their startup. So this is the opportunity for you, for women startups and also women-led startups. So feel free to check out the link, scan the QR code to learn more about the program. And also the top 2 teams that we're looking at, Lead Ventures would be investing into the top 2 team that comes out of the demo day. Yeah, so without further ado, we'd like to thank everyone who joined us. And we have a special perk from Rejina. So if you're tuning in today and also this session, you get to enjoy 2 months free of WVOT, right? Thanks to Rejina. So use this code. You can scan the QR code, which would be directed to the URL, or just use the URL, right? The referral code is already in the link. So this is especially for those who tune in today.
Thanks, Shannon. Yeah, so basically, if you use this code, you can get 2 months free on top of the 3 months that's currently running. So that's quite a good deal. But yeah, so check us out. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Rejina. So we've also have our upcoming event series. There will be one happening this Friday and also another 2 more sessions next week. So we have basically curated a series of women founders to basically share their stories, like Rejina, right? And also we have a collaboration with Redalui. So the Shift Asia will be releasing on the 29th of January. There'll be a series more about the accelerator and also, talking about how, female founders in Malaysia. So stay tuned on our socials. And thank you for joining us.